All right, welcome back to the GG Report. We are having a very interesting conversation today. My guest, Reverend Dr. Lydia Mwaneki, is talking to us about her journey, pursuing theological education. Remember, this is International Women Week, and I felt that it was very, very important for us to speak to someone who's done so much and occupies a very significant place in, as a woman in our society. And Reverend, you've done an amazing job, and you studied so hard. Pursuing PhD in theology, that's not an easy thing. And before we went to the break, we were talking about the fact that you had to study Greek and get your dissertation done. Now, tell us what was the core, hypothesis of your studies? What did you study? I am aware, we had a little bit of a chat before, of course, but I would like you to tell us. So, what did you write about?
Now, as I said earlier, I was disturbed by the use of biblical texts to marginalize women, to deny women positions of leadership in church, and to silence women.
All right.
So I decided to go deeper into those texts.
Okay.
But first of all, as an Anglican, I looked at the Constitution. Is the Constitution biased?
Okay.
Then I came across Article 4 of the Constitution.
The Anglican Church Constitution. Those of you who are not aware, the Anglican Church has a very robust constitution. It's one of the main, yes, go on.
And there was this Article 4
yes.
of the Constitution,
yes.
which is quite egalitarian.
Yes.
And it disallows discrimination in matters of church government on the basis of race, gender, and all other categories. Many other categories are there, but my interest was gender.
Yes.
So I asked myself, how has the church lived up to this? Up to the Constitution.
To that ideal, which is clearly documented in the Constitution.
Yes.
So that's the question you are trying to answer. That's a very good place to start. Decided to dive into that.
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
And then if it hasn't, why?
Okay.
So there was this continued use of biblical texts, as I have said earlier, and I really wanted to look at those biblical texts.
Yes.
That subordinate woman to man. That I don't want to say defying, but that categorize a woman as a second-class citizen.
Okay.
And in fact, I went to one of the key texts.
Okay. Yes.
That is 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 1 to 16.
Yes.
And it begins by a hierarchy. It constructs a hierarchy. It has established a hierarchy from God, Christ, male,
where it says,
female.
The man is the head of the woman, as Christ is the head of the man. Maybe I'm paraphrasing.
It is that one.
Yeah. So and then God is the head of Christ.
Yes.
That hierarchy. So
that
God,
hierarchy.
Then Christ, then man, then
so
woman.
It's a hierarchy of subordination.
Somehow, yeah. So that's the way it lays itself out.
Yeah.
And of course there are whole 16 verses, so there's a lot of depth in that. So you dived into that.
I dived into that. It is still the text about head covering.
The head covering is also within those 16 verses.
Yes. So I was interested to look at what is the significance of the veil. Of course, there is no word veil in that
text. Yes.
But it is implied.
It's implied.
It is implied.
Yeah.
But the most difficult verse in that passage is verse 7.
Okay.
Which I can paraphrase by saying, man ought not to cover his head because he is the image and glory of God. But woman is the glory of man.
Okay. That is a problem text. Okay? Those of us who are watching, I told you we're going to be talking very serious things, theological things. And we're going to open, remember, this is the big, bold ideas. Nothing is off limits here. So in terms of our discussion, and not to cast aspirations of the scriptures, the Holy Scriptures. We have a lot of respect for the Holy Scriptures. Yeah. But we are saying that text reads that way.
Yeah.
So what do you do with it?
So that text,
yes,
first of all, it like, because man is the image and the glory of God.
That's exactly what it says.
Yes. But woman is the glory of man.
Okay.
So woman there is like, she is excluded from the image of God.
Okay.
And that is how that text has been interpreted. Whether that is what Paul meant or not,
yes,
that is how it was taken up.
Okay.
Especially by the church fathers.
Okay.
Who spoke very evil of women.
Okay.
Woman does not bear the image of God, so she cannot represent the male God, because man has some divine characteristics which woman is devoid of.
Okay.
So in the history of Christian interpretation and appropriation of that text,
yes,
women were denied positions of leadership.
Okay.
Especially even in the mainline churches. Somebody like one of the church fathers, Augustine of Hippo, says, woman alone, man alone bears the image of God, but woman alone does not bear the image of God. It's not the image of God unless she is linked to a man.
Okay. Okay. And Augustine of Hippo, for those of you who are not familiar, is one of the key fathers, the people we call the real fathers of faith. The people who have a very, very strong bearing on the theological and historical interpretation of some of these texts. Yes. So that was very challenging. But now your work was to unravel that and clear the ideas. And okay.
So now that text, I had to look at the background in which informed Paul's construction of gender power relations.
Yes.
And I took the post-colonial theory because it helped me to look at the imperial, the imperial constructions of gender.
Yes.
And how Paul was informed, because Paul was working he was a Jew, but that time Jews were even under the Roman Empire.
Yes.
So he is a product of the empire.
Okay.
How does the empire inform his thinking? Of course, there is also the Jewish patriarchal culture and the Greek culture and all that.
Yes.
But the empire itself.
Okay. Yeah.
So I looked at that and I saw the influence from that, from
the context, the contextual influence.
Yeah.
That perhaps you would argue, one can argue that, look, maybe Paul was a bit biased because of his, positioning at that time. And the Romans ruled the world. They were very powerful. They had structured the world in a certain way. So that's very important. But I think what I like about what you bring out, because we may not go into all the solid arguments, I think it's the idea that now what you began to challenge was this image of God thing, because you felt that there is something that is not very clear here. So unravel that for us, because that's a very central. Oh, by the way, for those of you who are following this discussion, Dr. Lydia has written a book here called Gender and Imago Dei, Gender and Image of God. So this is basically like a synthesis of all your work. The title is Gender and Imago Dei. Gender, Imago Dei. This is a very solid work, a post-colonial African reading of 1 Corinthians 11 from verse 1 to 16. So this is really like the documentation of all that work.
Yeah.
So so you started looking at the historical. You traced all the way the ideas substantiated themselves across generations, from the church fathers to modern day theologians, and how all that has come through and where the issues are. But then now your counter-argument, the central counter-argument, is the image of God idea. So tell us a little bit about that, how that counters this kind of like gender biased apparent in that text. Yes.
So now when I look at that text and the way it has been taken up by future theologians and the church, and especially mainline churches, still looking at a woman as not the image of God. But when I look at other biblical texts,
yes.
For example, I ask myself as a biblical scholar,
yes.
Is Paul the first person to mention the image of God in the whole Bible? No.
It's not the first one.
He's not the first one.
Yes.
The first text is Genesis chapter 1 verse 27.
Yes.
Which says male and female are created in the
image of God.
Of God.
Male and female created he them.
Yeah.
Male and female he created he them in the image of God. Something like that. Yeah. Okay.
So there is nowhere in Genesis where woman is categorized as
subordinate.
As a subordinate or as inferior.
Yes.
Because even the mandate in Genesis chapter 1 verse 28, they are mandated to be stewards.
Yes. Both of them.
Both of them.
Yes.
Equally.
Yes.
So unless there is some influence, those cultural norms, patriarchal culture,
yes,
systems,
yes,
they are the ones that are reinforcing. People read the Bible selectively.
Okay.
Just to pick those biblical verses that would help them that would serve as divine sanctions for the subordinate status of woman.
That is a very, very serious statement, that people pick biblical text, specific text, that would reinforce norms. So norms that really like reinforce and authenticate a dominance kind of a structure where women are actually put as subordinate.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's what you
the Bible needs to be read holistically.
Okay.
And the Bible is the liberating word of God. It's not oppressive.
You can say that again. The Bible is liberating, not oppressive.
Yes.
Exactly.
So if one is reading the Bible to oppress,
yes,
actually, feminist theologians say, don't read it at all.
Okay.
Yes, don't interpret it at all. If you are using the Bible to oppress, yet even Christ himself is a liberator.
Yes.
Don't interpret it at all. Because
Absolutely.
it's misleading.
You remember the story of the woman who was caught in adultery?
Hey, yes.
I'm sure you have something to say about that.
That woman was caught in adultery alone. She was committing adultery alone.
Apparently. Yes.
It's like playing volleyball alone. Where was the man?
Where was the man?
Yes.
So if we are going to read the text, the biblical text, and be faithful to the scriptures, we have to answer that question. Where is the man?
Where is the man?
Okay. So, but then Jesus did actually then address the matter. What Jesus did in that scene is, I think, the most liberating thing. Maybe you should talk about that. How Jesus actually played that game, yes, on that day, to set the record straight.
Yeah, he said, any of you who has not sinned,
yes,
let them be the first. And he started writing. We don't know what he was writing. I don't know whether he was writing the sins of those accusers.
Yes.
Yes. But he just saw a gender bias.
Yes.
Yeah. But he also shows that he came to forgive sins.
Yes.
Yes. So those of you who are out there are not better than this woman.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you have no reason to kill her. Actually, they were even acting against the law itself. Because the law required that if a man and woman are caught in adultery, both of them are stoned to death.
Okay.
So why do they want to stone the woman?
That's the
alone?
Levitical requirement.
Yes.
So it was not. So Jesus could see the hypocrisy of these guys.
Exactly.
You know, so they catch a woman in adultery, as they claim. They bring her alone. They don't bring the guy, and they want Jesus to sanction some stoning here. And Jesus was not going to buy that arrangement.
And that is what we do, Pastor Gigi, even today.
Yes.
As I was growing up, even today.
Yes.
If a young girl gets impregnated, out of wedlock, she stopped from taking Holy Communion. Nobody asks, where is the man? And the man continues taking Holy Communion.
Oh, man.
Yes, that needs to be addressed.
That needs to be addressed.
Yes.
Yeah. So why should that be the case? Yeah. So there are real issues. Amazing. All right. So now, you've addressed those issues. Clearly, what you're saying is that there are gender-biased texts, or rather, there are texts in the Bible that have been used to sanction, to reinforce biases, norms, and society cultures that put women, in a lower place. Kind of reinforce domination and unfair discrimination, and fail to appreciate the fact that scriptures are very clear. Men and women created in the image of God, and they have equal standing, equal dignity. And I like, because I've looked at your materials. I like the idea of equality in equality and dignity. I like the idea of dignity. Do you want to say something about the dignity aspect of this?
The dignity of a human being, it is derived from the image of God.
Yes.
So that each of us bears the image of God. Each of us has the dignity. And even though those who are coming up with human rights, they use the aspect of dignity.
Yes.
And the person also looked at some of the biblical texts. So the Bible became an inspiration.
Yes.
Of the development of the formulation of human rights.
Yes.
So once when you abuse somebody,
yes,
or you make somebody to look like he's inferior,
yes,
you are insulting God. It's a direct insult
on God, who himself created man and woman in the image of God. Absolutely.
And I also need to say something about Paul. One needs to be very careful when you are using Paul to oppress women, because in many instances, Paul lifts up women.
Okay.
Even in that particular text, chapter 11, verse 1 to 16,
yes,
in verse 11 and 12, he says, man is not independent of woman, woman is not independent of man. So the text itself has liberating potential.
Okay.
Yes. Actually, I have written another paper in a journal.
Okay.
Liberating Paul. A sympathetic reading of Paul.
Okay.
Yes, so me, I liberate Paul. He's not my enemy.
Yeah. Because Dr. Lydia, I think one of the things that I've kind of picked up that in theological circles, people who would like to take a very extreme view and present Paul as someone who was misogynistic, like he promoted a biased theology against women, so there is that kind of, there are some extremists who would like to position Paul as actually not been pro-women and stuff like that. So you clear that by saying, look, Paul indeed, it's very clear that Paul clears the ground and says that a man is not independent of a woman, the woman is not independent of man. And by the way, Lydia, from where I think the way I see it is that the feminist movement, I think one of the places where it has erred is taking pushing the agenda so far and trying to argue that the only way we must understand the world is a competition between men and women, while the truth is women and men have worked together throughout centuries, and we are where we are because men and women work together.
Actually,
yeah, the women did, brought in the babies, looked after the babies. The men went to war and did all the hard work, and and kept the animals away from eating the children, that kind of thing. So other than the roles that were slightly different because of the way the family is organized, but they worked together.
Yes,
Am I putting words in your mouth?
They work together, Pastor Gigi. Yeah. But the problem is that is the division of those gender roles.
Yes.
Now with education, yes, everything changed. Everybody has an opportunity to go to school.
Yes.
And if a woman and a man, or a boy and a girl have gone to school,
yes,
the woman cannot continue to be confined to the home. Something has to be done about the gender roles, because those are not sexual roles, because sex is biologically determined.
Yes.
Gender is a social construction. So what is socially constructed can be deconstructed.
Okay.
If it's feeding the baby, I mean, for you to empower me even to study, like my husband did, he has at one time to also take that role to feed the baby, so that I can also pursue
your education,
my education.
Yes.
So the problem is that the confining women to those roles, but meanwhile, a man can also support the woman for her also to pursue something. So how can those roles be shared? Because biological roles cannot be shared, because I must give birth, I must breastfeed.
Yes.
But when the baby comes here, let the man also take the responsibility of care.
Absolutely.
Of care.
Yes.
So that they may have that bonding with the baby.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I like that. I like that. So I think matters well said. And those of you who are following us and you'd like, to get in touch with Dr. Lydia Mwaniki and maybe get to know more, some of the other material she's written, and maybe you would like to invite her to, to talk to your women and stuff like that, please, the numbers on the screen, you can use those numbers to send us a text, and then I'll link you up to Dr. Lydia. Now, we have a little bit of time, but not that much. I would like you to touch a little bit about your work at the All Africa Conference of Churches. People hear about All Africa Conference of Churches and they have all kinds of ideas what you guys are up to. So could you please clarify a little bit about that?
Well, the All Africa Conference of Churches is the largest association of Protestants, Anglicans, Orthodox, and African instituted churches in 42 African countries. And it has a membership of 193 members, including churches, national councils of churches, lay and theological training, and all that. And we collaborate very closely with other religious groups, with the African Union, with UN, with other multilateral bodies, we collaborate. So it was born, first of all, it has over 140 million Christians.
It brings together over 140 million Christians.
Yes.
Which are within those churches that are part of this association. Absolutely.
So it was formed in 1963. That's when it was established.
Yes.
When many African countries were attaining their independence. So there was need for the church to come together and give direction and also address the post-colonial challenges affecting not only the church but also Africa at large as a continent. Yeah, so it was mainly mainly formed to enable churches to address issues, continental issues, contextual continental issues, and also enable churches to be focused and speak with one voice. Yes. So we are actually, the headquarters are just here in Westlands, Nairobi. But of course, the All Africa Conference of Churches is all over Africa. Yes. And we have a liaison office in Addis Ababa doing advocacy. We also have, because of our French constitution, we have another office in Togo.
Very good. Excellent. I know we may not have much time to talk about the ACC, but that's where you play, that's where you serve in the role of the Director of Women and Gender. And you guys are doing fantastic work supporting churches. And just like the other local church associations, you're like the big one, the big brother
or
sister of the other church associations. And there is a lot that the local church associations can learn from ACC. Very good. So we don't have time to talk so much about that. I think your book here is a fantastic source of inspiration and materials for those who want to study theology and explore. And those who want to get in touch with you can get in touch with you through the ACC. That's the strategic plan at the moment. And then, but now we're out of time. So we will end it here. Before we end, Dr. Mwaniki, I would like you to speak to young women out there that are looking up to you and say, I don't know whether I can achieve what she has achieved. Do you have something to tell them to encourage them in 1 minute?
My daughters out there, I'm not different from you. I'm born and brought up in the rural. I went to rural schools. So, but education has empowered me. I had to pursue education. So if you have an opportunity, you must pursue education. You must not allow your dreams to be killed by anybody. You must go for what you yearn for. So you must be determined. You must be hardworking. And that does not mean that you can't get married. Get married. I got married. But in that marriage, know that you are the mother, you are the wife, you are the student, or you are a career woman, and you must be able to balance all that. Wake up at night, work. Sometimes the house girl tells you, or the house manager tells you at night, I'm going away the following day.
Lydia, you don't have that much time.
Oh, I don't have that much time. But just be determined, be a go-getter, and be ready to get tired. Work hard. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Oh, goodness me. That's all we had time for in today's show. Thank you so much for staying tuned and watching the GG Report. We're promising you more of this kind of energetic programs in the future. Stay tuned. We come to you every Friday. My name is Godfrey Gishoke, and it's good that you have been tuned in. God bless you, and keep watching Elevate TV. God bless you for now. Bye.